Women's Sports Mix.
Cambridge Radio.
Welcome to the Women's Sports Mix Show, the fortnightly show looking at local women's sports and promoting grassroots sporting opportunities for women and girls in the area. I'm Alex Elbro.
And I'm Amy Gray.
The A-Team.
We're the A-Team. Yes, the A-Team.
We haven't said that for a while, have we?
And if you would like to tell us about your sport, your team, grassroots activities, you can contact us, wsm@cambridge.radio. And that's our new email.
It is
that
exciting,
we forgot
isn't it?
we had on the last episode.
Yes.
But yes, wsm@cambridge.radio for anything to do with sports and activities for women and girls in Cambridge and South Cambridgeshire. And you can also follow us on Instagram at women's_sportsmix. And today we're going to be talking about, this is cool, we have returning guests because we're going to be talking about exercise in relation to menopause and perimenopause. And we're welcoming back Lesley and Maggie. Do you remember Lesley and Maggie
I
coming
do.
in?
They were
Yes.
really, really great fun and had some really useful insights, didn't they?
And they talked to us before about kettlebell, and we kind of touched upon menopause, but we thought we needed to hear more. So we're very happy that they agreed to come back on the show, and we're going to be speaking to them about that in more detail.
And we're going to be chatting about our first trip to watch Cambridge City women's football team play at their home ground in Sawston, the new ground.
We were there, first game.
Yeah, exactly. And Gladiators updates, not so many,
Or
but
not.
yeah, exactly. And how our fitness programmes are going or not. You're listening to the Women's Sports Mix with Alex and Amy.
And a week or so back, on Sunday, the 2nd of February, we went to the new Cambridge City Stadium. This is the FWDIP Community Stadium in Sawston. People might have already been there for the men's games, but it was the first women's game there.
It's not been open long, has it? Even for the men.
I
think
want to
they've
say
only done a couple
November or something like that. Yeah.
And we were like watching, weren't we, for when that first game was going to be? And we were both free that Sunday,
Yes,
Sunday the 2nd of Feb, wasn't it?
But in fact, I think the Instagram post might have gone out like during or just after our previous episode of the Sports Mix.
Yeah, I think
And
you're
then,
right. Yes, yeah.
We're like, oh, it's there.
Look at the diary, which isn't always works well, but it did. And we were very excited. We went down there. It wasn't raining for a start. It was quite cold.
It was nice. It was sunny, actually, wasn't it? It was one of those crisp, sunny days.
And it was very easy to find. That's a good start, I think.
It's parking.
And it's easy to get to if there's not terrible roadworks in Cambridge.
Yeah, we did get a little bit held up. In fact, we were only a little bit late, but we missed the goal. Not a Cambridge City goal, but it was just it was a St Albans goal.
We were literally paying at the turnstile, weren't you? And I think my card wouldn't go through or something.
They just scored.
Yeah, and we couldn't see what happened. Had we?
But we went straight to we got some cakes.
Yeah, we did. Herbie's Bakes. I'm going to give them a shout out because as we walked in, we were rushing in because we just missed literally the start. I think it was in the first minute, wasn't it, or something?
Yeah, maybe the first 5.
Yeah, and we were looking up towards the stand to where we were going to sit, and then Amy's eyes alighted on a huge stall of cakes. Herbie's Bakes. They did have other stuff, didn't they? I think they're one of the sponsors there, aren't they?
they are one of the sponsors. They had a banner up as well. And you might know Herbie's Diner, the restaurant.
No, he did speak about it, didn't he?
I go there. So yeah, they do cakes as well. And
we had a special deal.
Oh yeah, they have a deal on cakes, and the game it stayed 1-0. That was it. That was actually the only goal.
There was
of the
really
game.
Good support there as well, wasn't there? I think
really
they'd got some of their younger youth teams in, or rather they told them about it, and they'd all come along because there was a huge amount of supporters there, and everyone was cheering and shouting. It had a lovely atmosphere, didn't it?
It did, and they had a good chance. I think it must have been about half an hour in. Good shot. The goalie saved it. There was no one there for the rebound. I think that was one of their bigger chances. And then they had a couple right near the end. We thought it in the box or not. There was a foul, but it was a free kick just on the edge of the area. Unfortunately, couldn't make anything.
I agree that in my limited knowledge of these sports, and obviously being able to watch them stand is a bit different from when you're on the pitch and playing, that whenever they did have a chance, there wasn't really anyone there to pass it to if they needed to kind of get around a defender. So they did. That's where I would say the where it just didn't work quite was as having someone else or having a couple of people there to give her some choices of how to get it into the goal.
Yeah, well, I think it was disappointing because it was only 1-0. You know, there was no mountain to climb. They were definitely in it.
Oh,
weren't they?
Yeah, especially at half time. We were all very positive. I think.
We thought, you know, this they could go for it, or certainly you're thinking a draw's certainly possible. St Albans didn't look any better, did they? Like a 1-1
very
would
well
have been,
matched,
I think,
said.
fair.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So anyway, onwards and upwards for them, and hopefully, and the stadium. It's not quite ready yet. It's definitely work in progress. I didn't work out where the toilets were, but we'll work out that next time I go. Didn't need to, but some of the stuff is still in porta cabins, but the main reception area, if you call it, where you will go through, is still being made,
under the stands. But
the pitch and the stadium itself looks great.
Yeah, nice place to go. And if you are looking to go, and really Cambridge City women let's get behind them. Let's give them some support. They really, really need some points in the league. So the next home game, so that will be at this new stadium. That's February the 23rd against Needham Market.
Brilliant. So, well, we hope to be going to some more of the home games when we can get there. We'll have to alternate now, won't we, between all the different people we're supporting.
And coming up next, we are talking to Maggie Fordham and Lesley Fettes about exercise and menopause and perimenopause.
This is Cambridge Radio. Women's Sports Mix.
Hello now to Maggie Fordham and Lesley Fettes.
Hello.
Hi. Welcome. And we spoke to you earlier in the season, in the first half of the season, about kettlebells. We also spoke about menopause, but we needed more time on it. Lesley, I'll come to you first. We need to be talking about this more.
Absolutely, 100%. I think a lot of women who are embracing perimenopause or transitioning into menopause don't really know what kind of exercises they need to be doing. And I think we get to that kind of midlife point and we think, oh, well, I used to do lots of running, or, I'm going to take up doing half marathons. And we end up putting a lot of stress on our bodies that we don't necessarily need to do. And we just want to be able to talk openly about, what kind of exercise we should be doing and what shape that should take in order to help us as we age gracefully.
I know this isn't a definitive answer, but what sort of ages are you seeing people talking to you about perimenopause? Because it's actually a lot younger than we think. So
personally, my experiences and how I've kind of fallen into talking about menopause was I was 35. And my diagnosis was actually on my 36th birthday. So that was a bit of a shocker. But in a way, it was good for me to know that it was actually what is termed a premature menopause. So I was very early. But really, when we're talking about exercise and the type of exercise we should be doing, we should be, as women, we should be starting that as soon as possible. And that really is about talking about strength training and why Maggie and I both do kettlebell and are so invested in kettlebell. And I realised at 36, I really needed to start investing in my health and into strength training. And it was Maggie who then introduced me into kettlebells. And I realised actually the benefit of it and why. And Maggie can divulge more into all the science and why, what's happening to our hormones and why we should be doing strength training. But we're advocates for getting women to do it as early as possible in life, because
it doesn't have to be because you're perimenopausal. No. It's just a good thing for women to be doing.
We get benefit from exercise at any age, but when you hit menopause at 50, there's an immediate drop in your bone density because of the drop in estrogen at that point, and so you get a drop of about 20% in your bone density. So what you want to do is get your bone density as high as you can before you reach 50. We actually get to our peak bone mass around about 35 years of age, so it certainly is never too soon to be thinking about it, and you can continue to work on it, build it, and you want to have your bone density at that highest point when you hit menopause, because then you're not going to come to such a low place.
I didn't even realise that you could you could increase your own bone density. I thought it was kind of as it was, and then it just dropped, and then you had to just do things to sort of counteract
Lesley
that.
has a great story to tell you about that.
So having been 36 with my menopause, I was then having to have a bone density scan every year because of my age, and obviously you've got the danger of osteoporosis. And so then I started doing kettlebells, and within 3 years my bone density actually increased. And so rather than then having an annual DEXA scan, an annual bone density scan, they've put me on every 5 years. So I proved within a 3-year time period, by just starting and doing regular kettlebell activity, I'd increase my bone density.
That is amazing, isn't it?
And this is the problem that me and Alex are sitting here going, oh, you can do that and you need to do that. Why don't we know this?
Exactly.
Why is this information not readily available?
I was
to
always
us?
thinking that you were kind of counteracting, that you just proved that you can do something to reverse that. It's not an inevitability. I remember going to my doctor many years ago feeling like I was out of sorts. I didn't know what was, I was getting night sweats and all this sort of thing. And I was wondering about going on to HRT, which I'm going to say I'm out now on, finally. But at the time she just said, just need to do more exercise, and just dismissed me like that. Again, you're saying it's different exercise that you need to do. It's not just go and run around the park, which is effectively what I then did, and thinking it's all my fault, I'm terrible. If I just run more, I wouldn't feel like the way I did. And I was, looking back, it was terrible advice to be given.
Absolutely,
Massively,
because for one, running doesn't actually build your bone density in the same way as strength training, and two, when you're going through that menopausal transition, you're less resilient to stress and more prone to cortisol rises in the body. And cortisol itself is it actually breaks down bone. It has an inflammatory effect. And so when we do exercise for more than 45 minutes, we raise our cortisol level. So exercise is a stress on the body. It's a good stress as long as you handle it properly. And Lesley was saying, some people, get into running, you want to do half marathons, whatever, but actually it becomes counterproductive, and you're breaking down muscle and you're not building bone in the way you want to. Running is such a great way for people to de-stress, and so some people can be, scared at the thought of not being able to do their running in the same way. So we just encourage people to, if it helps you in terms of your de-stress, it gets you out the house, away from the family, the kids, your mind off work, great. Keep it under 45 minutes and try not to do it too often, and bring in other forms of exercise, bring in the strength training, because what we want to be doing is strength training we want to be doing it twice a week. And again, because of not wanting to raise cortisol levels too much, and we don't want to deplete and fatigue the body, we need good length of rest in between,
which is also just as important. And then people talk about rest days, and I'm sure a lot of people that are a bit obsessed with the gym think that that's kind of a lightweight thing. It's not really good. I must be there every day and doing 2 hours every day and this sort of thing. And also cortisol, because again, of having all this thing, it stops you losing weight, which a lot of people will think, well, I'll do this exercise in the gym and I'll work really hard.
You're on it.
And, you're raising your cortisol. And there you are. Oh, hang on a minute. I've worked all this hard and I've eaten all the right things and nothing is moving. And it was only someone else, when I did some looking into it, that you think, well, that's annoying, isn't it? And I'm loving that you don't do more than 45 minutes running, because at that point I do lose any interest in running. I love it. And I haven't been doing it at the moment because I haven't had the time or have had injuries, but isn't that good to hear?
Yeah, Alex was very excited about the 45 minutes or less. So you've said perhaps not so much on the cardio, and you've talked about bone density. Are there other areas of the body that are a risk that people need to be thinking about?
Yeah, so we've talked about bone density, muscle mass. So after menopause, you could be losing about 8% of your muscle mass per decade. And we know we need our muscles for strength to do things, but for balance. And obviously that's a concern as we're getting older. So we want to be hanging on to that muscle mass. Obviously, we like it from an aesthetic point of view, but from a functional point of view, we need our muscle. And it's not just the strength aspect and balance, it's actually our brain as well. And so studies have shown that leg strength and your buttock, your glute strength correlates to then the brain neural stem cells. So if you're not working the legs, then actually your brain cells are dying off. So you want to be doing those glute exercises.
I mean, I'm actually lost for words on that.
We're kind of baffled and stunned, aren't we?
And that's the amazing thing about exercise, is it does achieve so many different things, so many different aspects of our health, and it releases those endorphins, and mood can be low through menopause transition, and so it's great to get those endorphins. I was thinking about it to sort of really, what's the sort of the key message, and I think it's we want to be taking care of ourselves, and it's thinking about what are we putting in to take care of ourselves rather than the taking out, because I think the response we can get into with our bodies is that we push them and we punish them and we drive them, and you cannot afford to do that. when you're perimenopausal or menopausal. The body's already under so much stress. It's less resilient to stress. The estrogen and progesterone together protect us from stress. We've got less of those. So now we're more less resilient to stress. And so we want to be thinking, how can I take care of myself in ways that are going to keep those stress levels down? So exercise is all about investing in rather than sort of putting out the whole time. Yeah.
And sorry, you mentioned there about exercise, and strength training, and kettlebells being perfect for that, and squats. And are there any other exercises that are work like that? I'm thinking I like all the dance classes, but are they really not particularly doing anything for that apart from making me feel good?
It's fantastic for mobility, and as you say, feeling good. Those endorphins, you're getting some cardio. So absolutely, it's fantastic. Maybe a little bit of impact, depends on what type of dancing you're doing. So obviously, impact work does help bone density. There's a balance there with joints can be a bit tricksy sometimes, so getting that high impact work can be a bit challenging. So it depends on the individual, really.
So that's a bit like running as well. That is good for you in that sense of the high impact work.
The thing with running is you're moving in a linear plane,
right? Yes,
and so it's not the same stimulus on the bones. So the way that bone density gets increased is when you contract the muscle and it pulls on the bone and it stimulates bone growth. So we need to be moving in different planes of motion, and that's why running doesn't give you that same. But dancing impact. Classes with the extra or the kind of hit circuit things, I guess those that they work. That's probably what you do with your kettlebells.
Yeah, and when we talk about strength training as well, it can just be using your own body weight, and it's just putting force through your muscles. So things like doing press ups. We're not a fan of burpees, but I kind of think, even squats, lunges, all those kind of things. That is all forms of strength training, and we do all of those activities in kettlebell. But the beauty is we add that extra bit of weight to those exercises. But what's important, I guess, also to think about is where you start and how you start that. And it's not something like you don't go straight in and use a 16 kilo kettlebell. You build up that strength training to a point where you're then doing certain amount of reps, or and it's monitored, isn't it? Supervised. So you're doing the right thing.
I think you mentioned at the beginning, when we spoke to you before, that you wouldn't put somebody on straight into the kind of intermediate class, and they wouldn't be able to do your online classes till you've gone through the whole kind of beginner's course.
Yeah, we just want to make this safe
which makes sense, doesn't it? Because
and you were saying, Maggie, about your body's different to when you were young. It's been through a lot more and expectations. So it's if you're now thinking about this, don't expect that you suddenly have to be able to do all of it. It's sort of moving into slowly. It, isn't it?
Going slowly and gently, otherwise you'll end up with injury and it would stop you from doing anything. So so building up into it, and the first thing is to just be moving.
I was going to say,
it's so easy that we're just sitting down all day at a desk. So the first thing is to make sure you're moving, daily movement, and so getting in, walking to work, or throughout. And the thing is not to sit still all day. So even if you are working at a desk, that to make sure that you're getting up at least every 2 hours, if not before. Find an excuse, go talk to a colleague, go upstairs to use.
How long, because people say that, but it would be like walking downstairs, making a cup of tea and walking back up count, or should you really do a 5-minute anything?
No, absolutely. Because you're just getting the muscles contracting, and you're getting your lymph drainage movement, because if you sit still it's all going to pool, and studies have shown that even by just including that type of movement during your day, that it can help with your insulin sensitivity by up to about 17%, so that when you eat food, and this is something we'd like to talk about actually in terms of, you mentioned cortisol and being harder to lose weight. So it helps. What happens when your hormones drop, because estrogen helps us be more insulin sensitive, and so what happens is our hormones drop and we become more insulin resistant, which means when we eat carbohydrates our body needs to pump out more insulin, which means then in order to bring the blood sugars down, and it means then that we are getting into a fat storage mode, because insulin is a fat storage hormone. We want to help the body be more insulin sensitive. Exercise helps the body be more insulin sensitive, and even just a little bit of daily movement will help help your body be that bit more insulin sensitive. So yeah, it doesn't have to be 5 minutes, gone from your desk, but just move, just those little bits in between.
You can just do simple things, like sometimes if I've got 5 things I need to take upstairs, rather than trying to pile them all up and taking them up in one fell swoop, do it 5 times instead.
That's something I wouldn't have thought of.
Things like that.
But actually, that's a really good idea.
Standing on one leg while you're brushing your teeth. You've got 2 minutes in the morning and 2 minutes in the evening to actually, you can do squats, you can stand on one leg, get a balance board out. That really small things actually make a really big difference. And doing these kind of small little activities culminate up to something much bigger. So, just investing in a little bit.
A balance board is a really good one, because that's really good for core, I'm guessing, isn't it?
Yeah.
And for general balance, because I have found that as I've got older, I think it's a combination of probably being that much older and more cautious, but also kind of thinking, I need to hold on to something, or I'm not very good at that. And then obviously that then makes a vicious circle of thinking, I don't feel safe now, and then getting a little bit wobbly. But I am thinking that's what I need to do. Like I've noticed I started holding the rail when I was going up the stairs, and I'm like, why am I doing this? I haven't got any reason.
Sitting down and putting your socks on.
Exactly.
Well, stand up and put your socks on. And, just
that's
challenge
a laugh
your
in the
ways.
morning.
I know. Well, it's brilliant for me. I've got a dodgy ankle, so I fall all over the place. So,
But it is those little things, isn't it? And if you think, I know at one point there was some challenge or other that you did so many squats in a day, but then what happened was, then I was putting an alarm on, and you do 20 squats and every hour or something. Well, it doesn't seem like anything when you're doing that, but if you think over a few days, that's actually a lot compared to doing nothing.
It's huge, exactly.
And as we get older, and I'm talking more me than Amy here, things like getting up out of the chair without pushing yourself out, and all that sort of thing. Because when you get that much older, if you fall, you can get up and things like that. And all of this is all good stuff that we let it all go, because you think, it's too late now to worry. But I'm not going to worry about that.
And I think that's the key as well. It's never too late. No. It doesn't matter what age. So, it would be great if we can educate all women to be doing some form of strength training in their 20s and 30s. But actually, if you're in your 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, it's not too late. You can still do it. You can still introduce some form of strength training into your day. And some form of movement, and that's what's really key, isn't it? It's just to keep moving.
I think one of the things, Maggie, I know that you were keen to talk about, which is the perceptions and the understanding of menopause, sort of more widely in the media, maybe in your workplace, things like that. Do you think are we making improvements there? Is there more to do?
I think there's always more to do, and I think it will depend very much on the culture of an organisation, on how they're doing with that. But I think we know that the conversation around menopause has massively, it's exploded, hasn't it? I've never seen anything like this before in my lifetime, and so if I think of all the generations of women before us, they've never had this. So we're in a really fortunate position in this time. But I think obviously there's always more work to do. But I do one of the things I guess I wanted to talk about was the fact that it's great to hear people talking about menopause. It's great to hear about it being addressed and appropriate support given within the workplace, and that really needs to be a priority. But I personally, looking at Facebook, Instagram, it becomes like the next trend. And so, every day there's some celebrity who's, put out a book about menopause, or some, on the front of, it's great, older women on the front of magazines, but they're still setting this impossible ideal. They are looking beautiful, glamorous, incredibly thin, and now what is making us feel as menopausal women. And again, it's like, we had that in our 20s and 30s when we had these role models and we thought, I have to be like that. And now here we are as menopausal women when we've got plenty of other things to be thinking about, and it's being done to us all over again. And I think, yes, it's fantastic there's a conversation, but let's approach it in a healthy, balanced way. And I know from one side it is, in terms of the health of women, and that message is really getting out. But I think there's a danger now that we're also seeing the image of it.
Yeah. And I think it's become a marketing tool as well, hasn't it? It's like things are rubber stamped with menopause approved, or, and it's like, no, this isn't, there's chocolate that you can buy that's supposed to be great for menopause. Really? No. But what level? Or, celebrities bringing out supplements. You're like, well, where's the science behind it? What are you actually telling us to take, and why are we taking this? So I think we have to be very mindful, and I applaud the fact that we are now able to talk about it, because when I was diagnosed, menopause was still very much a dirty word. I couldn't even talk to my peers about it. They weren't going through it. Nobody had any understanding about it, and there was still the whole myth around.
Still the jokes of people get hot. One thing that I still find quite irritating, people don't mean to do it, but people will get hot and they'll go, oh, I thought I'm having a hot flush, or I thought you try having a hot flush, and then you'll see what it feels like.
Exactly.
And they'll say, oh, is it me, or is it just my age? And you're like, don't do all that. It doesn't help anyone. And some of those things, I know people don't mean to do them, but it's a bit like, when people have OCD and it's a real problem, and then people go, oh, I'm a bit OCD, or any of the neurodiverse things that people are realising you don't just say those things. It's going to have to become, and then people say now I'm too PC or I'm woke or whatever, but those things are like you're saying with the image, oh, I mustn't have that, or that's going to be a good thing, because I used to think, oh, well, it's okay when I'm in menopause. I've always been cold. I'm always cold. I'm freezing. My hands are freezing now. I always think, well, that's good, because when I'm getting menopause, I'll be warm, because everyone tells me that I'm hot all the time. And then when it happened, and I'm like, well, hang on, I don't really want to be sweating through the night, but equally, I don't want a hot flush, which does not make me feel warm. It is like somebody lighting a fire inside me and pushing it out. It's the most weirdest thing I'd ever felt. It can be really debilitating.
Yeah. I was running an agency at the time, and I would have really bad hot flushes in the middle of presentations, and I wouldn't be able to talk and get my words out, and I'd be lost.
And you can't just take a cardi off and that's okay. People didn't, and I know really that's come from a place of nobody really understanding it, and because we were never told about these things.
Isn't that ridiculous and astonishing, and yet also not a surprise that as a women's issue, something that so many people are affected by it, and you're saying, oh, there wasn't the information there. How can there possibly not be when so many people go through this?
And this isn't a new it's not like menopause has just happened, like you say. It's all these celebrities and everyone.
Ever since there's been a woman on a planet, there's been menopause.
It is absolutely crazy. One thing I wanted to ask you, and this is sort of more for myself, that you said about supplements and vitamins and things that are yes and no and HRT or whatever. Is there a point when you can stop those or reduce those if you're continuing, say, with exercise? Because what puzzled me is that, after a certain age, your estrogen falls off a cliff, and some of these things will keep it artificially, if you like, high, so that you don't get that same thing. But has there got to be a time when you've got to tail that off, and then you've got to cope with that?
Well, the thing is, estrogen drops because our ovaries stop producing the estrogen, but other organs within the body take over that role and do still produce a form of estrogen. So we get it from our adrenals and our liver and from our fat cells. So we do still need estrogen in the body, and the body's very clever, and it steps up and it does that. We need to support it in terms of nutrition, rest, stress management, to help it to be able to do that. So no, we're gonna need to keep fueling that body and supplying those nutrients. It would be my response to that.
Because that's what I thought. It feels like, well, at what point can you suddenly say, okay, I'm through that now? Which people say, you hear them say, oh, it's okay because I'm through the menopause now, and you're like, yeah, but that doesn't mean you suddenly gain any of that stuff.
They're technically not through the menopause. They've done the perimenopause phase.
Yeah.
So menopause is actually only one day in your life, and it's only worked out a year after you've had your last period, and then you're post-menopause. So you've done your menopause before you know it, but it's the perimenopause where we get all of those symptoms, and that's when our hormones are doing all this fluctuating, and we've got no control over them, and that's why we have all those symptoms, why we get the hot flushes, the night sweats, the brain fog, the achy limbs and things. But what we try and advocate is actually by having this strength training, looking at your exercise, looking at your nutrition, then you're putting your body in a really good position to be able to help level out those hormones and balance them in a way that you wouldn't necessarily know how to, or because you're naturally going through this this decline in your hormones. We do need to find other ways to try and balance that and give ourselves a good level playing field.
There is that menopause transition. So you've got your perimenopause where everything's your progesterone's really dropping off. Your estrogen is very volatile, so it is overall going down, but it's very volatile, and you can get those real spikes, and that's when you get that real mood up and down, and all the fun of the menopausal symptoms. And then we have our menopause transition, and that can be about 2 to 5 years when the body is adjusting to how do I now produce the estrogen that I need. And so that can still be a time of slight instability in the body, and we need to be very nurturing and caring for the body. And then once after that, then things are just much more on an even keel. And in fact, then, so when you're into your 60s, it might be that you can up your exercise, and you're not suffering so much from those effects of cortisol or whatever, and you can you're probably going to feel your energy levels are much more steady and stable, and so there's life on the other side.
Yes, that sounds good, doesn't it? You mentioned here about the rushing women syndrome.
Yes,
that we're always feeling like we're not enough, and we need to be always doing busy and things. But you've sort of talked about the need for rest as well. Do you advocate any kind of like relaxation type things?
Definitely, absolutely. So relaxation, stress management, because I don't know if I'm allowed to say bummer on the radio, but the unfortunate thing is that menopause, because of the age it's hitting us, it's right at the time when we're being pulled in so many different directions. Typically you're going to have teenage kids, probably going to be at the peak of your career, so there's more demands there, and quite possibly you're caring for elderly parents. So you're torn in all directions, dashing around already, and then you get the joy of hormones that are all over the place. So you are getting stress thrown at you externally and internally, and just at the point when the body's really not that resilient. And so we want to try and manage stress as much as possible. We want to try and say no as much as possible, put boundaries in, and then we want to be creating those times for us for that stress management, whether it is our yoga, our mindfulness, a walk in nature, or just saying goodbye to everybody and getting a book and going sitting in a cafe.
I'm guessing walking the dog is a good one.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
So it's all the dog lovers in this one. I'm not a dog lover, I just don't own one.
And having a pet, you have a cat, that's great tranquility and calmness as well, just having a pet around.
And that's oxytocin. So this is a really, really easy little trick here. So petting an animal, petting your dog or cat releases oxytocin. A hug from somebody will release oxytocin. You have to hang on to them for a good few seconds, so it has to be someone you know well.
Don't just hug a stranger in the street.
And you'll notice if you hug them for about 20 seconds, there's a point when they'll just sort of go, and that is oxytocin being released. It's like holding a newborn, little baby, cuddling a baby. And we have the hormone oxytocin released in us. And that's actually then the sort of like in the priority of hormones in the body, oxytocin is number one. And from that then comes our estrogen, in terms of then the production, estrogen, progesterone. So if we can get that oxytocin being released in us, that's going to fare well for all those other hormones. So have a hug.
Right, Amy, before and after every show.
This is good advice, Hugging a dog is exercise I can
I was
get
thinking
on
of
board
hugging
with.
each other, actually. But,
but
that's well.
It was nothing personal, Alex.
I feel a bit deflated now.
Well, this has been an absolutely brilliant conversation, isn't it? Have you got one more, Alex?
I'm just going to ask about, you mentioned some resources that you might put people towards.
Yes, we've got a PDF to download which talks about the type of exercises you can do throughout the week and how to kind of plan that. So limiting your cardiovascular to 45 minutes throughout the week,
Get
and
your
then your
strength
training in, and then things like yoga and walks in nature and stuff.
And just to say, strength training absolutely helps with fat around the middle, just to get that message much more than cardio. Big one there.
How should they find your PDF?
We'll give you a link that you can put onto your...
Yep, we'll share that on our socials and see if we can get that on the Cambridge Radio website too.
Lovely.
Well, thank you so much, Maggie Fordham and Lesley Fettes, for coming in once again. So much great information. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having us.
Women's Sports Mix. Cambridge Radio.
You're listening to the Women's Sports Mix with Amy and Alex.
So let's have a look, Alex, at Cambridge United women. So we spoke to Liz Pamplin on the previous episode, the women's team secretary. Liz was looking for a reaction after their 5-2 loss to Chesham. And they got that to 2-2, if you remember. Then it was 5-2. Liz did say it's going to be tough away to London Bees at the Hive. We knew that, and it was another loss. That was 3-0, and Darren Marjoram, manager, spoke to from the terraces after that game, and he was very disappointed. And he said also the performance after conceding as well, I think, was something they wanted to work on with that. So we are recording today's episode a little bit in advance. Normally we're live. Views have already played Sudbury when this goes out. So bearing in mind, Alex, the result is out there in the universe. We don't know it. Dare we make a prediction now?
Well, I'm going to say, firstly, having two losses in a row is really hard for any team, isn't it? It's hard to come back after one, because you start getting that a little naughty person in your head that says, haha, you're never going to be able to win. And I think we talked to Darren about that in the past, didn't we? Saying we talked to him, in detail, and he's saying it's always hard, and it's always then good to go onto another game on the back of a win. Yeah, well,
it's like both sides, isn't it? You get that winning mentality, and then you can sort of get stuck losing.
So he must be getting them ready for the game on Sunday, saying, come on, you can do this, you do. Now, I was just checking, we don't think that they've played Sudbury this season anyway, so this will be their first game as far as we can see.
They had.
And so if they're round about the same place as us in the table-ish,
well, they're sort of mid-table.
I'm being positive. So I'm going to say 1-0 to the women. Us women, the Cambridge United women. Let's go for a positive.
Yes, I was thinking maybe a 1-1 to ease back into,
that could be,
maybe 2-1.
Oh,
maybe.
Yeah, let's be positive.
Maybe.
So
but we don't know.
We'll see. So you'll have to be telling us the results of that before we are. And they have got a game, haven't they, on the 13th of February. So that's Thursday night.
And who's that? Is that the Real
yes,
Bedford game?
Real Bedford or Real Bedford, depending on how you want to pronounce it. I don't know where that comes from.
That's another tough game.
Yeah. So I hope they can pull it back for their own sakes, because they're a great team, and all you need is a bit of a sort of positive thing. Not all you need. You need to be good. The other team need to be. You need to be better than the other team. Funny enough, and you need to score some goals. That's how it works, I believe.
Yeah, come on, Hughes. And Cambridge City, actually, their game at the weekend on the 9th against Enfield was called off due to a waterlogged pitch at Enfield. So
that's annoying, isn't it? I guess there has been a lot of rain, hasn't there?
There has been. And Cambridge Kodiaks not playing at the weekend, as we said on the last episode, but their B team was in action against Oxford Shining Stars at the Cambridge Ice Arena, and that was 9-2 to the Shining Stars. And if you're looking to watch the Kodiaks, their next home game is on Saturday, February the 22nd. Face-off is at 6:40pm, so, get there a little bit before that, I would say. And there's always plenty of parking at the Cambridge Ice Arena. This is always useful in Cambridge.
These things are good to know, because if you get caught out by that at the end, then you are a bit in a fiddle, aren't you?
Yeah,
because you can't.
There's plenty there.
Yeah, and merch.
And yes, although Christina had said about the bobble hats,
yes,
had they been very popular, and there was a picture of a dog with a bobble hat on their stories as well.
No, you see, I'm yet to get mine, because you did offer to get me one, didn't you?
Yeah.
And I said no, I have to go to the game, because I don't feel I've earned my bubble hat until I get there. But we'll see about that one.
But well done to whoever balanced the bobble hat on the dog. Because I actually did that on one of my stories when my NFL team were playing. I put my NFL Buffalo Bills hat on my dog.
How long did it last?
And I was like, for the second that I took the photo, Alex,
yeah, exactly.
The rest of the photos of the hat, gradually.
Well, I'm impressed that you could get away, put it on his head, and then get away quick enough to take the photo before it went off.
Yeah, and he's not a dog that likes his accessories either.
No, our cats would never do anything like that. Sometimes when he's asleep, you can sort of sneak something daft, usually a sock, to be fair. That's not usually me doing that either, on his head, just for and then he just goes to sleep with like a sock basically balanced on his head. But that's what pets are for as well, aren't they? No animals are harmed in the making of these
just
photos.
loved. And that game is against Peterborough Phantoms, and you can go to the Kodiak socials for more information, ticket information, things like that. And we'll have results and reaction from that game on the next episode of the Women's Sports Mix, which goes out on Cambridge Radio Tuesday, Feb 25th, and then it's available on all podcasting platforms after that, as today's will be as well.
Absolutely. And I also want to say that I love that their start of game is called a face-off. I mean,
Yes.
you know, it's not just like
And a puck drop.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
So
there's
I thought isn't the puck drop when there's like a penalty or like instead of like a free
is it?
kick?
Oh, maybe there is.
I don't know. Maybe that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Unless maybe it's just the face-offs to start and then anything after that is that.
I'll ask
that's the
the
next
Kodiaks,
question, isn't it?
to verify, because a face-off, I'm guessing, would only be at the beginning of the
Yeah.
game. Maybe a puck drop happens multiple times.
That's it. That's what I'm
throughout the
thinking.
game.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll see how
see.
ridiculous our summation is of that.
You are listening to the Women's Sports Mix with Alex Elbro
And Amy Gray.
Cambridge Radio Women's Sports Mix.
This is the Women's Sports Mix with Alex and Amy. And Alex, did you see this one? I'm sure you did, because she was on Cambridge Radio. Zara Lackland.
I know.
The rower.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my
Honestly, so amazing. Now, she rode solo from Europe to South America, taking 3 months to do it, all on her own.
97 days.
Oh, honestly, I can't even contemplate that. I heard some of the interview, and you can listen to it again, can't you?
You can, if you go to cambridge.radio. It's there under podcast Cambridge Breakfast, or you can put in Zara in the search bar and you'll find it. And it's a great interview with Julian Clover. And Zara rode from Portugal to French Guiana.
And she said, I heard some of the things, she said the boat was like, it was a two-person boat anyway, and it weighed like something like, I don't know, I was going to say 800 tons.
800 kilos.
Oh yeah, I was going to say 800 tons. I was thinking that can't be right. That can't be right. But something went wrong with it, didn't it? So some things she couldn't do or could do, or something happened.
And she said it was like
carried on.
self-writing. I don't know what. I think there's probably a nautical phrase there.
No, I think that's right.
Where she said it would, if you went over it, would then just roll all the way back. So you're just like, whoa, underwater, whoa, and back.
It's like when you do a kayak, I think they're called Eskimo rolls. I've never managed one without looking very drowned, where you learn to do that so that if you fall over, you can come under and come up. But so they make you do them.
So you're not shocked.
Yes, but they make you do them. But it's like, why do I want to, I'm perfectly happy and dry in here. Why do I want to throw myself upside down and under and come back right out again? But it does look very cool when it happens, except you're dripping wet, I guess.
Zara told Julian when she was talking about the dehydrated food that she'd had, and then Julian said, oh, was there something you were really looking forward to? And she was like, vegetables. He was like, but something like chocolate. She's like, I haven't eaten chocolate for 10 years.
I know, that was hilarious. Well done to you, Zara. I think the rest of people listening were like, what? That was the bit I took most away, was that she hasn't eaten chocolate for ages. So her treat was like having hot food, wasn't it, and vegetables, which, although to be fair, sometimes when you go away on holiday and you've just been eating a load of stuff,
you want something fresh.
Yeah.
And Zara was raising money for Team Forces Foundation and Women in Sport. And the part of it of the sort of isolation, I'd like to think I could deal with. I probably couldn't, but it's just how vast the ocean is.
That's it. I always think, well, I'm quite happy in my own company and all that sort of thing, but for 96 days, and she was saying she was hallucinating. She was saying that the water looked like it was wild horses, although I was saying to someone, that's interesting because there's lots of songs with wild horses. It's the analogy of the waves. So whether that she's heard that and that's come in, or whether people do think they do look like wild horses. Anyway, that's me just speculating there. But I think she said towards the end she lost her phone, or her phone fell in the water.
Yeah,
something.
no music.
And she had nothing. So no wonder she was like making up little stories about what was going on.
Yeah, it's an amazing achievement.
Yeah, and what's she, 21, I think?
I think she was the youngest person and the first woman to do for that feat. Yeah.
And I believe she said she's going to look for her next challenge. She's going to go back to uni now.
Gosh.
I think she's doing physics, I think, at Loughborough. And,
at Loughborough, and then she's in the military as well.
Yes, she's being sponsored by the military, so I'm sure she'll be going on to do lots more, but from Cambridge, so that's really lovely. And before we go, we want to have to talk a little bit about Gladiators. Now, if you watch this seems to have been like a regular slot now on our show. Since last time, though, I have applied for tickets for the next season.
Yay.
So,
assuming that it's for me as well.
Oh yeah. Oh, definitely, yes. Oh, yes.
Can I come?
I presume you can get 2 tickets anyway, but I was watching it the other week, when we were talking about it, and we would fit in right in there. Not doing it, I'm going to hand it up. Neither of us are going to pretend that we're going to do it, even though I like to think I'd have a go at some of the things.
Oh, no,
but not with a gladiator chasing me.
I wouldn't be any good. I have no illusions.
But we have news, if you haven't already realised by now, that they didn't put gladiators on this weekend, and I was shocked and horrified. I was ready to settle down for my early evening Saturday night gladiators, and because of, would you believe it, the men's football, we didn't get gladiators, so we'll have to.
Was that the same last series? I think
probably. I mean, it was one of these things stuff. On, like, it popped up on my social media like it was a really terrible thing. Of course, when you read the story, you're like, oh. Yeah, they just moved it from the schedule for a Saturday because there's a league. It was a cup game, wasn't it? I think it a cup game.
Well, FA Cup games were on, so I'm guessing it was something televised from that.
Yeah, so that was a bit disappointing. But we will get back to you in the next episode about our thoughts on gladiators. And if you obviously have any thoughts on gladiators, you can get us on email wsm@cambridge.radio. And we are looking for anyone that's ever competed in gladiators or wants to compete in it and like send in the form, not just like us.
Even if you competed like whenever.
Oh yeah.
Like, there's been
absolutely.
3, like there's been the original, the reboot on Sky, and then now this reboot.
Or you know anyone and you can put us in touch with them, or a gladiator or one of the old school gladiators. Any of that, we would love to talk to you about the experiences of it and how it goes. I mean, it always looks like they have the best time, doesn't it?
It does.
Oh, the best, but the worst.
So it just by the end of it, they're just out on a mat.
Yeah, broken, broken arms and legs, limping away. And that moves me nicely onto our fitness. How are we doing in our own little fitness world at the moment?
Well, I'm sort of looking a bit guilty and suspicious over here.
But same here. So I think I said in the last episode that I'd spoken to a friend and I said I'm going to do the 10K this year, but I have been injured because In the gym, I managed to twist my knee and I thought it was better. But this week at Pilates, I tried to do something and it really, really hurt. So I feel like I probably need to do some in quotes, rehab and actually look at exercises to build up the strength in my knee because I wonder that's why it's got twisted. But on that, it means I haven't done anything. Although you have pointed out I did do Pilates. So I haven't been doing the Zumba because that's a lot of twisting. And I went out for dinner with a friend the other night and I went to get out my card out of my purse and out came my gym membership card and she said that's the one you need to be using more than this credit card, guilting me into getting into the back into the gym.
You've done the Pilates even though you have had injuries and I think you're giving yourself maybe a bit of a hard time. Actually a lot of people to even get to the point that you start doing a class can be a bit of a hurdle to get over. And we've talked about that on here, haven't we? Lots of reasons why, but I really enjoy it. And the good thing about it once you go to a regular class is, well, it should happen in all classes, but you feel more confident to talk to the instructor and tell them what your injuries are. And then, so last week they adapted it for me because I couldn't do certain normal exercise that I would do. To be fair, it's the one I really hate, which is lunges. And I was like, I can't do those. So I did. He gave me a different exercise, which was one of my favourites. Yes. Is lunges, I mean, I know what a lunge is sort of roughly. Is it like a special lunge? Is it just your regular lunge?
Well, because I do a reformer Pilates, which is on a machine, the machine moves when you do a lunge. So you have to stand on the solid bit, sort of up in the air. I mean, what's that? A metre, not even a metre probably in the air. Put one foot on the moving carriage and you lunge out onto the moving carriage. So you could go much further if you're not, you could end up with splits. So that's why I'm always really nervous.
Look at my confused face. I'm like, what is this?
And then,
why?
it's more, it could be stronger than a normal lunge because you are in control, but you can push it further if you want to. So I've never been a fan.
I mean, it's a whole new world. I don't know
exactly. We could go into a song there. Anyway, I think we've reached the end of the show.
Yes, we have. So thank you so much to our guests today, Maggie and Lesley. It was great to have them back here, wasn't it? And I'm sure we'll probably have more. We'll need more from them in the future, won't we? Because they have so much knowledge around menopause and perimenopause, things to be looking out for. So much great information for us. And who have we got coming on next show? We are talking rugby in the next show. Now, I know we've had rugby before, but again, it's returning lovely guests. It's rugby with Fabia Howell, who came in before, player at Shelford Rugby Club, but she's also operations manager at Cambridge University Rugby Club, and we wanted to hear more about that side. And we've managed to get Darren
Roger, the Shelford women's head coach, coming in as well. Tell us about his insights into the women's rugby there.
And you can find us on Instagram at women's_sportsmix. We're on cambridge.radio, and we're on all the streaming platforms, Apple, Spotify, YouTube. You can find the
you name it, you
podcast
can
there.
find us. And we'd love that. And we'd love you to get in touch sometime about anything you'd like us to talk about. Bye.
See ya.